Good evening. I'm sorry I can't be in person with you tonight. I'm really excited. Our company is offering some new opportunities that are first being announced this evening at 9 p.m. And because I have not quite figured out how to master being two places at once, I decided that through video would be the easiest way to do that simultaneously. And I want to thank Netta for assisting me. So last week, we went over some great nutritious foods. And you probably noticed that a lot of those were vegetables. And I know that everyone in our group does not have that same warm affection for vegetables that Kimball does. And I've got one person that I am still trying to enroll in enjoying vegetables. So tonight I'm going to go over 19 easy ways to add vegetables to your life and hide them. So this can also be helpful if you have children. Sometimes they're not as into vegetables. So, and there are 19 because when I was doing my research, there were a couple of that I didn't like. I wanted to have 20 and just didn't quite come up with it. Well, the first is chili. When you're thinking, well, am I going to make a vegetarian chili? Well, you could, and you don't have to. You can make it with meat. However, add onions and celery and carrots and tomatoes. And I'm going to suggest that you buy fresh tomatoes as opposed to canned, because canned tomatoes often have a lot of sugar in them and a lot of salt, whereas if you use the fresh. Now, some of you non-vegetable people say, well, I just don't like those things. Well, what happens if you put them in your blender, put a little water, and just puree them, and then put that in the chili? Now with vegetarian chili, that's going to be soup if that's what you choose to do. But with meats, you can put your meat in there and have that as your sauce, and you get the vegetables and you don't have to deal with them. Now, meatloaf is amazing. And meatloaf actually is one of my favorite meals. I don't know if I ever told you this, but my mother was not a very good cook. My grandmother raised me, and she was an awesome cook. And there were two things that my mother made pretty good, and that was meatloaf and spaghetti sauce. And both of those I truly love. So in that, puree vegetables up again and put in there. You can do zucchini. You can do, any vegetables that you'd like. You can puree them up, put them in with the meat, and cook them. And then you will add those. And I would suggest you use a lot of different colors, because the more colors of vegetables you use, the more variety you're going to get. And so using carrots, zucchini, onions, cauliflower, broccoli, cabbage, all of these wonderful things, you can use those. And I will get to it in a minute, but you can use those as thickenings. So adding those in, mushrooms, I forgot about that, spinach, any of these you can put in, and you'll have your wonderful meatloaf, but you'll be getting your vegetables. Riced cauliflower, and I know I can just see Bishop's face going, that's not cauliflower. But it only has 20 calories and 4 grams of carbohydrate per cup, where rice has 200 calories and 44 grams. And you can make it yourself by pushing the cauliflower down into a blender. If you want to change the flavor, maybe, and don't even call it rice. If that upsets you, that's okay. But use sesame oil with it. Chop some vegetables, put some eggs in it, add tofu. These are all things you can do. And then put it in a casserole. Make a tuna casserole with the rice, and either with vegan cheese, or the best cheeses you can use are raw cheese that's made from raw milk. They're vegetable noodles. Now, I have yet to find vegetable noodles that I buy at the store that I like. I get the frozen ones, and I'm just telling you, I may not be cooking them right, but they seem to turn to mush. But if you get a little spiral, you can make the spiral vegetables and then put meat sauce over it. You know, you can put meat sauce over most anything. If it's a meat sauce you like, it won't bother you a bit that you're eating vegetables because you probably won't notice it. So using those and using spaghetti squash, I'm telling you, if you haven't gotten the spaghetti squash yet, get that, and you can make any and every meat sauce you want and put over it. And it's also, the spaghetti squash particularly is a very hydrating vegetable. Use vegetable to thicken your soups and your sauces. I really had never even thought about this. They say that well-cooked cauliflower, pumpkin, peas, butternut squash, acorn squash, and carrots are great for thickening things. So you think about that. Cook them and then just mash them, put them in that, and they'll be the thickener, which I think is a great idea. It says wonderful to use with black bean soup, with chicken soup. That's a great idea. They suggest pureed cauliflower for it. Use the cauliflower crust pizza. That's a great thing you can make at home. Another one is unpotato potato salad. Now, you know that I've talked about the fact that potatoes don't really have much food value. And maybe you just don't like cauliflower potato salad. Well, there are other options. Rutabaga is my favorite for this. And I think some of you were here last year and I used rutabaga. You just boil the rutabaga, peel it, and cut it into cubes, or you could cut it into cubes and then boil it, whichever you like. Make sure not to get it too mushy. You want it to have it, you know, so it's firm, just like potatoes. Cut it in the cubes and make it. Rutabagas have fewer carbs and a lot more nutrients. You can also do turnips like that. Any of the non-starchy vegetables that you can use, substitute for the potatoes. So those are some good ideas. You can also mash them if that's what you want. I really prefer mashed rutabagas to mashed white potatoes. So that is another way to get that in. If you just not crazy about that taste, add some spices and the Primal dressings. They have a ranch that is fits in with Whole30 and keto eating. You can pour some of that in, and that sort of makes the ranch mashed potatoes people like. Make chips from vegetables. I really love kale chips a lot. And if you don't like vegetables, say, oh, I couldn't do that, at least try some. You're going to get the vegetables and you wash them, cut them down, put them in an oil, put them in the oven and roast them till they're crispy, and they can be very, very nice. Eggs are a great thing to add vegetables to. You can chop them very fine and put them in an omelet or scrambled, or even cook them, mash them, and put them in with the egg yolks that you make your deviled eggs with. Another easy way to add the vegetables. It'll add a little bit of flavor. It won't taste just like the vegetables do. So for my non-vegetable loving people, it's a cool way to get it. Now, roasted vegetables are very good. And some of you, I can almost see somebody going, oh, but I don't like vegetables. Well, roast them and put spices, or really toasted sesame oil is very, very good for you. Sesame oil has got it's got all the good properties in it. And when you put it over something, it really changes the flavor. So roasting them can be a way to get more. Also, many people don't like broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and cabbage because of the bitter taste that they have. I love bitter things. I had never really thought about it before until I was reading. So take those, and I like my vegetables really just still firm, just mildly softened. That's when they're the most bitter. My husband doesn't like them like that, and he doesn't like bitter things, and I never put it together. So cook them until they're much softer, and that cooks away that bitter flavor, and you will still get the vegetables in. Soups are great. Well, you can do the vegetable soup where you've got the pieces of soup and you just eat it, and that's great. But another great thing is cook the soup with all the vegetables in it and then put it in small batches into your blender and puree it so that you've got a really creamy kind of soup. That way, and you can put any vegetables you want in. Think about the vegetables you need and maybe you don't love. Put them in there, use chicken, use spices. And I'm going to come up with putting up some recipes for you guys for soups, because I'm a huge soup eater. In fact, I did some of my first soup last week. And this is just a great way to get all of those in. And people that eat soups tend to release more weight because they feel more full. I've talked about this with you before, that in Japan, they have soup with every single meal. Well, eat the soup first, wait a couple of minutes, and then eat the rest of your meal, and you will feel more satiated. Now, remember what I told you. When you're eating soups, you want to chew the soups, because chewing turns on the digestive tract. It's that particular movement. Remember how I was telling you, movement is medicine, and our bodies are meant to move. Well, when you're moving those jaws, it is preparing itself and releasing the hormones and the digestive enzymes that it needs to break down the food. So lots of soups. I talked to you already. One of the things you can do is with pastas, and get the vegetable pastas, and then in your sauce, puree the vegetables up and put them in the sauce and eat them over those. And I talked to you about hiding. You remember I talked about green peppers, red peppers, yellow peppers. They are packed, and they're great. People that don't like them, you put them in a puree and you really don't even notice they're there. And you can add other flavors. Like my husband will not eat olives, but when I put olives in these sauces and puree them, he loves them then. So play with these, and particularly play with the vegetables that you don't like as much, but you know that they're good. Also, adding spices that you don't usually eat when you're cooking these things. Indian spices, the Thai, the Malaysian, the curries. Putting those and putting the vegetables in the sauces, those are spices that are very pungent. And you're going to taste that spice more than you do what's making it up, which is a great way to add the vegetables in. You can also do vegetable pancakes, and you might think that that's a step too far. But you can take zucchini and onion, carrots, and grate them, and then blend them in with a keto-friendly flour and make pancakes out of them. And they're really good. Now, this isn't a sweet pancake. You might like to grate some cheese and have on it. Another great way to add in vegetables. Salads, I love. Well, maybe you don't like cold salads. You can roast vegetables and put them over quinoa. Don't go crazy with the quinoa. Quinoa is, when you're eating grains, quinoa is a great one to use because it's got protein, but use that as a small base and then put roasted vegetables over it, add the spices, have a warm salad. Now, this last one, I bet you have not heard of this before, but it's oatmeal. And you're thinking, oatmeal's what I put cinnamon spice and everything nice. But instead of doing that, stir in some spinach leaves and cooked vegetables and stir that in. Put some feta cheese or your favorite non-dairy cheese on top. Let that melt that, have it hot, and then try it out. It's a whole nother way to do the oatmeal and to add your vegetables in and to cut down sugar for most people. Wouldn't be eating that a lot because, as I told you, oatmeal has some benefits. Particularly, we'll have to say this, if you have any ulcerations in your esophagus or have been having reflux or things like that, oatmeal really is very healing to the GI tract. And this is another way to eat it without having the sweet things. The last one is dips. You can take cooked peas, cooked broccoli, cooked carrots, and use it as a base for dips. Put in some garlic powder, Parmesan cheese, feta cheese, cilantro, cumin, add all of these things, add some tahini and mix it up, and you've got a wonderful dip. And then you can eat that dip with more vegetables. So I will see you again next Monday night. A big shout out for Netta for showing this, and I hope that you all will have some discussion about these ideas and put it in the chat so I can see what you talked about. Eating vegetables is extremely healthy, and it will help you live long and strong. So I hope this is beneficial. Have a great week. Post in the chat, and let's live better together, because we are all in this life together. I love all of you. Bye for now.